Just read about Bilaam wanting to curse the Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, and he blesses them. And one of the things he says, Mimona Afer Liakov. What is it referring to? Mimona Afer Liakov. So Rashi cites the Midrash. What he was saying was that the many mitzvahs which are dependent on the earth, but something which has no value. For instance, there's a mitzvah of lo sachrish v'shor chamor yachtov. You're not permitted to plow a field with two species of animals. Lo sizar karmachol kalayim. You're not permitted to plant your vineyard kalayim, to crossbreed crops there, to plant, let's say, wheat near a vineyard. You have aphid poraduma. You take the red heifer, you burn it, and there's a mitzvah of poraduma, aphid. It's dust, burn ash. Then you have afar sota, a woman who's suspected adulteress. You take the dust of the floor of the Mishkan or the Beis Hamikdash, you mix it with this water, and that brings about, that verifies whether she's an adulteress, not an adulteress. Mimon afar Yaakov, like he's like amazed. How do you take something of such little value and you turn it into a mitzvah? You know, usually, especially you do a mitzvah, you do it something in the most prestigious way. We have Zeked L'Manveyu, you do it in the most auspicious way. And here, things which represent nothingness, God is turning into a mitzvah. Doesn't make any sense. That's what Bilaam is saying. Now, what doesn't Bilaam understand, which we understand? I mentioned that Bilaam had said, he says, I built 7 hamizbachos. He doesn't say, I built 7 altars. I built 7 the altars, hamizbachos. So Rashi cites Chazal, what is the Hey? Hey means minor special. Why? Because the 7 altars which I built correspond to all the karbonos that the Osek Kadoshim brought. Avram only had an Akedah. This one brought so many. And me, at one time, I brought 7, which is equivalent to all of them. So therefore, you should value me minimally as much as you value them, but you don't. What didn't Bilaam understand? So we once mentioned a Rameir Simcha at the beginning of Vayikra. He cites the Ramban, who has difficulty with the Rambam more in the Nevuchim. The Rambam in Guide for the Perplexed writes, the whole concept of karbonos is that a person has a need to serve a higher power, and unless he's able to express it in a permitted context, he may express it in an inappropriate context. So because Hashem gives us the ability to bring karbonos to him, to serve him through sacrifices, this avoids us from bringing sacrifices for idolatry. That's the Rambam in Nor Nevuchim. So Ramban disagrees vehemently against the Rambam. He says definitely that's not the understanding, it's wrong, because karbonos, it's to activate forces, spiritual forces, to coalesce them, and that's korban means lekarev, to bring all these spiritual energies together and bring about a result. That's korban. That's the Ramban, and he, as I said, he castigates the Rambam. He says impossible, it's unacceptable what the Rambam says. So Rabbi Simcha Vinsk explains that the Ramban misunderstood the Rambam. The Rambam is speaking about Bama. Bama means there was a time that a Jew was permitted to build a mizbeach on his rooftop in his backyard and bring a korban to Hashem. That's what the Rambam is speaking about. It's called Bama. Bama means like an elevated location. But there were times, most times you weren't permitted to do this. If you wanted to bring a korban, you had to bring it in the Mishkan. He says, a bama, that Hashem allowed you to bring a korban on your back, in your backyard or on your rooftop, that was because of what the Rambam writes in the Moreh Nevuchim, and God for the perplexed. But in the Mishkan or the Beis Hamikdash, there it's identically to what the Ramban writes. Why? We find by the korban that's brought in the Mishkan or in the Beis Hamikdash, it says L'fnei Hashem. You bring the korban before God. It's the location of the Shekhinah. When you bring the korban, the location of the Shekhinah, then it activates all these various energies and coalesces these energies to bring about the result. But a bama, when you bring that korban on the self-made altar, it has no relevance to L'fnei Hashem. So there, the purpose of that is that since a person is not able to bring the korban in the Beis Hamikdash or the Mishkan, at certain times, Hashem gives you that outlet to be able to express your subservience to Him by bringing the korban on the bama. This is how the Rameir Simcha explains the Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim, that the Ramban misunderstood the Rambam. That's the understanding. So now we're able to understand something. Chazal tell us that the Ovos HaKadoshim, Heine Heine Merkava. Where was the Shechina before the Mishkan was built? The Shechina was exactly where Avram was, where Yitzchak was, where Yaakov was. So every one of them was the equivalent of what? Of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, of the Holy of Holies. So because each one was the location of the Shechina, as a result of that, when Avram brought the korban, when Yitzchak brought the korban, Yaakov brought the korban, it wasn't like in your backyard. It was the presence of Hashem. It was the presence of what? Of the Shechina. What's presence of Shechina, it's a whole different dimension. It's no relevance to the Bama. It surpasses it infinite times over what it is. Bilaam had no understanding of that. He's a Navi, they're Naviim. He has a relation with God, they have a relation with God. It's day and night, it's not enough of a difference. Their relation with God is because Hashem is there with them. So when they brought the korban, it was Lifnei Hashem. It was the equivalent to bringing the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan. Therefore, it activated all this. So therefore, Bilaam says, and therefore Hashem says, you can bring me thousands of offerings. It means nothing. It's not comparable. That's what Bilaam didn't understand. So Bilaam had no understanding of the concept of activating forces of spirituality. All he understood was he has a relationship with Hashem. That was his understanding. Okay? Now, we find there's a famous medrash, which it's a medrash Tanchuma, it's a Yalkut, and the Ohr HaChaim cites it. There was a Tonus Tropis, who was the Roman governor of Yerushalayim, who's ultimately the one who put Rabbi Akiva to death. He himself very often was in the public debate with Rabbi Akiva. And he says to Rabbi Akiva, whose action is more perfect? That's the question. He's a pagan. God's, the one you believe in, or the man, or the human being? So Rabbi Akiva says, the human being's action is more perfect. Seems like taking it back. You're a believer. You believe God is the creator of the world. How could man, who's fickle, who's a creation of God, how could his action be more perfect than God's action? So he says, so this Thomas Tropis, this Roman governor, says to Rabbi Akiva, God created heaven and earth. Could the human being create heaven and earth? It's beyond his capacity. So Rabbi Akiva says, we're not talking about something which is out of the realm of the human being's capacity. Within the realm of what he has relevance to, is his action more perfect than God's? So Rabbi Akiva says, yes, man's action is more perfect than God's. He says, how could you say such a thing? He says, I'll give you an example. If you take a kernel of wheat, which grows out of the ground, although it may be edible at a minimal level, but if you take that kernel and you mill it, and you turn it into dough, into flour, turn it into dough, and you bake it, and you have the finished loaf of bread, what's more perfect? The kernel of the loaf of bread? He says, of course, the loaf of bread. So the loaf of bread is man's accomplishment. The kernel is God's, because only God could cause the kernel to come out of the ground. So you see clearly that man's action, contribution brings about perfection, and God not. So what does it mean? God created an imperfect world, and man's objective is to perfect God's world. That's the takeaway from the kernel versus the completed loaf of bread. So Tonus Tropis says to Rabbi Akiva, he says, something's bothering me. If God created the human being with a foreskin, why do you people mutilate the child to take off the foreskin? The human being is perfect. So Ohr HaChaim explains that Rabbi Akiva, that Tonus Tropis had no understanding of spirituality. He could understand the kernel to the loaf of bread. But how this whole concept that there's a spiritual realm that by cutting off the foreskin brings about what does it bring about? The human being is less perfect. He doesn't understand that the foreskin represents evil within existence, and the way you open all the channels of spirituality is to remove that impediment, which is the foreskin. He had no grasp of what that's all about. That's why Tonus Tropis didn't understand the takeaway from the kernel to the loaf of bread. So you're right. So we see that Bilaam, he had no understanding of the spiritual realm. He doesn't understand that you take the whole value of physicality is only to facilitate spirituality. It's a means to an end. We read at the beginning of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz. And we once discussed this. Originally, the appellation at the beginning of creation is Elokim. Elokim is the attribute of justice. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz. Vayomer Elokim yor. Elokim said there should be light. And every one of creation says Elokim. What's Elokim? Midas Adin. So Rashi cites the Chazal that initially God wanted to create the world with Midas Adin. But because he saw man could not survive Midas Adin, therefore he coalesced into it Midas Arachmi. So we ask the question, in terms of the human being's record, if he succeeds or fails, we understand that if the Midas Adin, since man is prone to fail, he doesn't stand a chance. But what does Midas Adin have to do with or, with the water, the gathering, with vegetation, or with the fish, or the insects, or the birds? What does that have to do with Midas Adin? What does Midas Adin have relevance to anything but man's record? So we explained then, what is Midas Adin? Midas Adin is exact, exacting, precise, precision. For instance, we discussed that the Mishkan is a microcosm of existence. Now, in the Mishkan, there was very specific measures that had to be met. There were standards, and you had to meet those standards. The Mishkan was so many cubits. The Aron was so many cubits. The Shulchan was so many cubits. The Mizbeach was so many cubits. You had to meet those specifications. If those specifications weren't met, the Mishkan is not functional. It's not a valid Mishkan. Everything's precise, exact. When Hashem created the world, he created the world with an exactness. That's the Midas Adin. Meaning in existence, although existence borders on the infinite, within existence, there's nothing superfluous. Even though there are many things we don't understand, the galaxies, the planets, the forests, the species, whether it's vegetation, whether it's insects, whether it's other species, it's endless numbers. What do you need it? There's nothing superfluous. Because that's Midas Adin. That's din. Midas Adin means everything is done with exactness. Now, why did God create the world with Midas Adin? Meaning with this precision. It's precise, exact. The answer is because we have mentioned, it says, Bereshis bara Elokim, why did God create this world? For the sake, this is the setting for the fulfillment of the Torah. And the only nation that has relevance to that are the Jewish people. Now, what is the Torah? What is the Torah? So the Gemara tells us in Avodah Zarah, we mentioned this, that during the first 3 hours of the day, what does Hashem do? He studies Torah. The second 3 hours, he judges the world. And the Gemara says that if a person says Musaf on Rosh Hashanah, which is the Yom Adin, he should not say Musaf during the first 3 hours of the day, because the most exact valuation during the first 3 hours of the day. Therefore, unless you're at Tzibor, you have Shchus at Tzibor. You have to merit the Tzibor. So if you're going to say Musaf individually, say it during the second 3 hours. So Mar asks, but we said Hashem judges the world during the second 3 hours a day. The first 3 hours a day, he studies Torah. So Mar says, no, when Hashem studies Torah, that's din. That's din on an absolute level. Why? Because quotes of Pasuk Mishlei, Emes Kenei Val Timkor. Torah is truth on an absolute level. Truth means it has to be exactly 100% truthful, absolute truthful. If you deduct from truth as much as an iota, and we mentioned in Maral, you take Aleph away from Emes, what's left? Mem Tov, Mes. Torah Hashem Temima. The Torah of Hashem is perfect, and it's Emes. So therefore, when Hashem studies Torah, Torah is din. Torah is exact. As a result of that, if the world was created to facilitate the Torah, all aspects of the Torah, just as the Torah is perfect and truthful, absolute, the world itself has to correspond absoluteness, and therefore those within existence. What we're talking about, we're reviewing things we said over the years. Therefore, there's nothing superfluous in existence. So what is existence? It's physical. It's mundane. No, but its mundaneness corresponds to the spirituality of Torah and it's to facilitate spirituality. So the physical has no value unto itself. The physical purely is only a means to facilitate, to activate the forces of spirituality. That's something Bilaam didn't understand. That's something this Tonastruppers didn't understand, because they have no understanding of the spiritual realm. Everything's limited to what? Is limited to the physical. As a result of that, Bilaam was taken aback. God created earth, dirt, ash. All of a sudden, you take this dirt, this earth, there's a mitzvah. Don't plow with two species of animals. Don't plant your vineyard with two species, crossbreed crops. Take the ash of this red heifer, and that's the ultimate. And it's been diminished, it's been minimized to such a level. Take the dust of the floor of the Mishkan, add it to water, that will verify whether she's indulgent or not. That's the mitzvah. Doesn't make any sense. Because the non-Jew has no relevance to spirituality. His existence is not to facilitate spirituality. That's the Jew. So where it's only a means, not an end, it's irrelevant. It's only a representation of something to activate something else. Therefore, that's what he's amazed. Mimone Afar Yaakov. Here it's like it's something which is mind-boggling. How do you take something of no value and all of a sudden you turn it into something of value? But we understand, because everything in existence, it only exists to facilitate spiritual. Only God knows how this corresponds, the physical, at whatever level in terms of its representation, how exactly it activates certain things and other things don't activate those things. That's the understanding. So I said something interesting. We had a machlokas in the Gemara, in Parshas Kedoshim, it says, Lo svareish v'chol b'shosechem. You should not kindle fire in your communities. We have a lav lo saskom loch, and Torah singles out kindling. What is Torah single out kindling? So it's a machlokas in the Gemara, machlokas tanoim. Is it to tell me that although all the other creative activities of Shabbos carry the death penalty, kindling is only a lav. Although it's a violation, but it only carries the liability of malchus, not malchus. It's a lav. Or no, it was singled out l'chalik yotzos. Meaning, no, you would think since there's only one lav, l'sasel melocha, if you do all 39 activities during one awareness, you only bring one chatos. The Torah is telling us no, that although it's expressed through one lav, we see it as 39 separate provisions. Therefore, for every category of melocha you violate inadvertently, you have to bring a chatos. And that's what we rule. We rule it's l'chalik yotzos. What's the chiddush l'chalik yotzos? What's the Torah telling us? But why did the Torah choose kindling? What is kindling? Kindling is you take something, we say melech smach shepsos Torah. Every one of the activities is creative. You weave, you dye, you plant, you reap, whatever it is. It's all positive. What is kindling? You take something, you burn it, you destroy it, you reduce it to ash. You think it doesn't fit the profile of what a melach is, because you're a violation. Carries the death penalty. No less than weaving and dyeing and baking and cooking. It's all the same. But this is ash. But you understand, that's why the Torah chose that. When you take something of seemingly of greater value, reduce it to ash, that also is something. But that's within the context we're talking now. Because everything within existence, if it meets certain criteria, that facilitates spirituality. That's why the Torah chose kindling to reveal to us that it's no less than the most creative activity, which we understand there is value, but even the ash, which is a minimization of value, nevertheless, it carries no less liability than the ultimate level of accomplishment. For this, the Gemara deduces from a pasuk in the Torah that in the Chazal, that the greatest prophet among the Jewish people was Moshe Rabbeinu. Because it says, Lo kom novi b'Yisrael k'Moshe. And God attested there was no greater prophet than Moshe, b'Yisrael. But the inference is, Beinu Olam, but among the nations of the world, there was Bilaam. He was as great as Moshe. So the question is, how was he as great as Moshe? You see clearly his behavior. If he would have understood what Moshe understood, he couldn't behave the way he behaved. He couldn't believe what he believed. He committed bestiality. He, in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avos, it discerns between the students of Bilaam, the students of Avram. Bilam was Ruach Gevoah. He was pompous. He had an insatiable desire for material. The Talmidi Avram Shvalruch, they were humble. They had minimized their involvement in physicality. Worlds apart. And Bilam, you're connected to God. How do you behave this way? It's an obvious question. So I mentioned the name of one of the answers, but the most recent name of Rav Chaim Volozhiner, which it's cited in the introduction to the Igeres HaGro. The Vilna Gaon wrote a letter to his family when he was going to depart from them to go to Eretz Yisrael, which he returned. Nobody understands why he returned. He writes over there of Chaim Volozhiner, the eagle is a bird that no bird flies higher than the eagle. And an eagle is able to see when it flies because of the refraction of the sun off the earth, literally hundreds of miles. It uses the light and the refraction to see hundreds of miles. That's why you call the person, he's eagle-eyed. A bat has no eyes. A bat can't see light, doesn't know what the light is. But as much as an eagle sees light and utilizes light, because it sees light, a bat cannot see light. But the sensitivity of a bat to light, the way God created the bat, when it senses light, it goes to the deepest recesses of a cave to escape the light. That's what a bat is. Does a bat know what light is? Bat doesn't know what light is. But it's something that when it senses it, it goes into hiding. That it should not in any way be exposed to what that light is. That was Bilam. Moshe Rabbeinu, whatever he was, is because he saw, he understood, he internalized, and that's why Moshe is Neman B'chol Beiso. He's the most dedicated servant of Hashem. So whatever he was is because he understood, he came to levels of understanding and purity and spirituality and holiness because of that understanding. Bilam, he had a sense of God. Did he know who God was? He had no idea who God was. But he knew exactly certain moments. This is the moment now I'm going to curse. He knew he had sense of moments. He knew that moment was the ultimate. But what was that moment? What was the value of the moment? He had no idea. Therefore, he behaved the way he behaved. Like literally like a pervert, a corrupted human being at the most extreme level of corruption. That's what he was. But God connected him because the nations of the world should never claim, you gave Moshe a prophet, you never gave us a prophet. Okay, I'll give you a prophet. He'll have a sense of me. And through that sense, he'll understand what's going on. But does he really grasp it? He has no understanding what it is. He doesn't relate to what spirituality is. Therefore, we read in last week's parsha, he believed that he could hoodwink God. God asked him, where are you going? So he says, whatever he said. And Rashi says, of course, if he asked me, where am I going? Evidently, he's not aware of everything. But if you understand who God is, there's no way he's not aware of everything. The answer is, he believed he could hoodwink God, and there can be certain moments he'll be able to slip it under the radar and curse the Jews, as much as God doesn't want him to do it. The answer is because if he understood who God was, it's not possible. For that reason, that's how Rav Chaim Volozhiner explains it. The way I explained it many years ago was slightly different. That's like totally different. If a person has a heart and he has blockages in the heart. And as much as the heart is structured, but if you have those impediments and blockages, the blood doesn't flow. Blood backs up. And the person doesn't function. The different parts of the bodies don't receive the amount of blood it needs to be energized, to be oxygen. It doesn't. Bilam had every conceivable impediment that existed in a human being that prevent any relevance to even be able to relate to what spirituality is. It's like, a person says, I believe in God, he created the world. But yet we behave the way we want to behave. Unless you have a sense of God, the only way you could have a sense of God is only through the study of Torah. Because a Jew has a neshama, has a soul, that when you connect it properly and the child is circumcised, we discussed, you open all channels of spirituality. And now if you nourish those channels, they can actually thrive. And they overtake the person and spiritualize the person. That a non-Jew doesn't have. And not only does non-Jew have Bilam, for sure, when you're corrupted and all these other behavior patterns that you have every negative characteristic and you take it to the extreme as Bilaam did, therefore it's all conceptual. It's abstract. As a result of that, you're not touched. If you're not touched, you can behave in whatever way you want to behave. Forget about it. They don't have territory.
What is the understanding that neither Edom nor Moab's territory can be violated by Klal Yisrael?
Okay. Edom is, we speak about Esav Sonei Yaakov. Edom, Esav is the counterforce. In the world, there's a balance. There's a balance between good and evil. And now the question is, there's a tug of war between the two of them. Who has the upper hand? If the Chazal tell us, it's a medrash at the beginning of Eicha, the Edomites destroyed the Bayeshenim. We still haven't recovered from it. It's 2,000 years. But if the Kol Yaakov, if the Jews would be studying Torah where they should, and the tefillah would be, and they would utilize their mouths in a state of purity as they should, Esav does not have the upper hand. Esav only has the upper hand when we don't meet the standard of a Kol Yaakov. So there's a balance here. There's good and evil. Edom represents evil at the most extreme level. Yaakov represents Kedusha. He's the only one in existence among the 71 nations. He's a representation of God's presence in this world. And that's Bereshis Bara Elokim. Ultimately, the objective of creation is L'chvodi Barosef, my glory I created. That's what we end off. The Pasuk says at Tehillim, we end off before Yishtabach. Ki L'Hashem Amlucha Moshe Goyim, Volo Moshe B'Artzio Lishvod Es Hareisov. At the end of time of Mashiach, the Redeemers will come, Lishvod Es Hareisov. The Mount Har Seir, Lishvod Es Edom. Edom will be judged and go into the oblivion at the end of time. Until now, there's this good and evil issue. Mashiach comes, all evil will be expunged from existence. And since Edom is a representative of that evil, he's gone at the end of time. That's Lishvor Sar Esov, Hoyel Hashem Amlucha. And God will have the ultimate reign. That's the end of time. But until then, the stronghold, the representation, the power base of Edom is where he is. That's Rome. Rome is the location of Edom. Therefore, that is their location. That's a representation of existence. The Jews' representation is what? Is Eretz Yisrael, that's Eretz HaKadosh, the Holy Land. They went and they were able to breach it and destroy it. And they reigned over it. First, they were, before the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, they were in Eretz Yisrael, the Gemara tells us, for 186 years. They already entered into before the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. They already had a certain degree of dominance there. And ultimately, they destroyed it. They took it over totally. That's Edom. So therefore, the territory of Edom cannot be violated because they have their power base. They have representation. They have the counterforce to what Yaakov is. What about Moab? Let's talk about Moab. Moab, it's interesting. Lot, we find that when he left Egypt, he became very wealthy. He left with tremendous wealth, which ultimately led to his destruction, spiritual destruction. Why did he go to Sodom? Because he was wealthy. And that's why he stood up against his uncle. So it says, because since when they asked Avram, who is Sarah Imenu? Who is Sarah? She had such beauty. He did not divulge that she was Avram's wife. Because he asked her to say, presents of her sister, because he says, because they'll kill me. And since Lot was sensitive to that, therefore he merited all this wealth. So many things he did was because of what he did for Avram. I'll give you an example. We find that when Moshe Rabbeinu was confronted with Og Melech HaBashan, the giant, Hashem says to Moshe, Al Tira, you have nothing to be fearful. I mean, Moshe split the sea, brought the 10 plagues. He has to be fearful of Og. The answer is because why did Og live all the hundreds of years he lived? Because Og had a schus. What was the schus? Because when Lot was taken captive, Og was the one, he's called Vayova Polid. Why is it called Og? The word in Hebrew, Uga, means like a cake. he came to Avram Avinu, and they were baking, we said ugos, right? When he hosted the Malachim, they were baking ugos. Because when he came, they were baking ugos, he informed Avram Avinu, your nephew was taken captive. Now, what was his intent when he gave him that information? That he should go to battle against the 4 kings who had taken Lot captive, and he would be killed in battle. That was his intent. He had a sinister intent, but nevertheless, he facilitated the objective to save Lot. And for that, he deserved to be rewarded. Yet Moshe was concerned that schus was still lingered on even until when he went to confront him. If that's the case, he is worried. He's not going to be able to defeat Og. Hashem says, you have nothing to worry about. Altiro. That schus has been depleted. You're going to take him down. Not a problem. But that was his schus. Moab, Lot had a schus. Firstly, he's the nephew of what? Of Avram. Secondly, we spoke about, why did Avram go to bat for Lot to such a point when he saved him from the 4 kings, he was worried that he depleted all his merits, right? And afterwards, Hashem has said to Avram, Altiro, Avram, schorcha harmid meod. Not only did you not deplete your merits, because he needed such miracles to defeat the 4 kings, you've added to them. Schorcha harmid meod, you even have more than you had before. Well, so we asked the question. Lot went to Sodom. Lot failed endless times over. Lot was a decrepit, corrupted person. Why did he go to bat for him? So we had said then, the first human being to give his life in Kiddush Hashem, not to do idolatry, was who? Was Lot's father. Haran, because he did not bow to the idol, he was thrown into the kiln, he didn't come out. So because Lot's father was that special person, he was the first one to literally give his life to sanctify Hashem's name, not to do idolatry. Therefore, Avram held he was responsible for Lot. He owed it to him. So Lot had many things going for him. He was the nephew of Avram. He was the son of Haran. As a result of that, even though it came out through incest, and Moab is the one where the daughter revealed the source of that pedigree. Moab, Me'ov, it's my father. Nevertheless, he had that special merit that territory, when it's given to them, cannot be violated for that reason. I'm on them, both of them. I'm on them for that reason. But ultimately, what was the schar? The ultimate schar.
Rus, right?
Rus, the grandmother of David HaMelech, came from Moab. She was a Moabite.
So, Rabbi, why can't you?
Hashem paid. Wait, what's that? Hashem paid his debt, so to say, to Haran for not being a pagan. To die for Kiddush Hashem, the big prize was Rus. And the Gemara says in Brochus, why was her name Rus? We say that one's destiny lies within the name, that she's going to have a grandson who's going to meraves Hashem b'tivush shvochos, who's going to say to Hashem with song and praise. David, he wrote Tehillim. That's the ultimate work of Shiras Shvochos. So Rus married that. She was that special neshama who was born to the Moabite people. Again, why? Because Balak, we learned the concept of Bitoch Shloshim Balak from Balak. He built he brought 42 karbanos. But those karbanos, who did he bring them? They went out for pagan worship. He brought them to Hashem. Although he brought it should be a means to destroy the Jewish people. That Hashem should be attentive to allow Bilaam to curse, but factually he did something for Hashem. In the merit of that, the Gemara tells us that's why he merited to have Rus as his granddaughter.